Hey everyone, it's me. Coming on strong. Hope you're feeling blessed no matter where you are. So if you clicked on this title, we're going to talk about a really deep situation and a really deep conversation. But this is my perspective. And I can honestly say this is one that I've contemplated many times in my life. And I want to shed some light on it, or at least put a perspective on it that might make you see things a little differently. So the question that I get asked a lot, the question that I'm sure most of you ask a lot is like, why does God allow for all this tragedy, mishap, shamelessness, disastrous things to happen? And first and foremost, I am of the thinking that yes, okay, we do have a higher source creator. We do have a creator that created all of us. But at the same time, where's our onus in all of this? Why do we allow all of this to happen is a better question. Because it's so easy for us, again, to point fingers at an all awesome creator. But yet, when we look at ourselves, we take no notoriety, no responsibility. And realistically, it always falls to the wayside of the creator to fix everything. But yet, we hold a lot of power too, and a lot of us don't take hold of it for the most part. Like, an example of this is like, we all know Mr. Trump, right? Here's the thing. A lot of people think a lot of things about him, but how many people really say what they think to him? How many people call him an idiot to his face? Let's face it, a lot of people kiss his ass. We saw this very readily available in the FIFA World Cup talks, and it was like, he's an idiot. He's a bull in a china shop idiot. He really doesn't have the know-how to run a country. But yet people let him. Why? Because they don't want to take responsibility. And the same goes for every other tragedy in this world. We look at all these huge wars and huge genocides, and we're always like, oh, why does God allow for this? Why do these people have to suffer? Well, not for nothing. People could take it under their own hands to stop it. And we all know who those people are. And at the same time, it's wondersome why they don't stop it. But let's just talk about basics, okay? I know for myself, okay, in my life, I can only speak to my life. Some of the most disastrous, breaking moments in my life were some of the most tragic, gut-wrenching, fearful times, right? I thought they would break me. And you know what? For some time they did. But what I did notice is that most of the time, whatever the tragedy was, it actually broke me open. Okay? And not for nothing, what a lot of these tragedies and what this chaos can do is break us all open. Break the world open, break people open. And it makes us focus on what truly matters. The family, love, all of the things, the strength that we have within. To really look at things and say, hey, let's band together. Let's work for things like civil liberties. Let's look for freedom of speech. Things of those natures are the basics. They're the rubrics of our foundation of what we really want in this world. So not only do these tragedies set the stage for things, but they also help us build a lot of grit and a lot of endurance. And we are very, very capable beings at adaptability. We saw this all through COVID. Who would have thought that we would have gone the way we did? Who would have thought that we could be entrapped in our houses for almost 2 years? Who would have thought that we would have figured ways around finding stability and a community in a world that made no absolute sense when we were told to stay away from each other? Somehow humans adapted. Somehow humans figured it out. And that's what I think, in essence, God is always trying to show us, or at least in the sense of like, we can take hold of a lot of things. And that power and grit that we build from that chaos is something so powerful that we forget on our everyday to day when things are just, melancholy or normal or seemingly normal. The resiliences that we need and the personal power shakes within us. Like right now in this world is brimming and shaking with personal power all around us. There's people taking hold of their control in their world, what they can contribute, what they can change, and we're making a change, and that's the whole point. When there isn't much controversy or there isn't things to really fight for, we're not really a fighting people. But when things and shit hits the fan, we tend to pick up a shovel. That's kind of how we are. And I think when people are pointing the fingers, they're still not at a level where they're actually seeing their personal power and they're not picking up the shovel yet. We have to think, could it come any other way? Some of the most prolific and memorable points in our life and in our history came from horrifying tragedies. It's like and not for nothing, chaos and disaster and just sheer human indecency and injustice, it tends to expose what's broken in our system. The broken pieces, the things that we wouldn't have noticed had everything been la-di-da. So, like, even for example, right now, like, we're inundated with things like real true racism. Okay, like, I never would have thought in my lifetime that I'd be seeing the things I'm seeing. Some things are so uncanny, so ridiculous, so like unbelievable that if I were to go back a decade to speak to my past self and say, hey, you know that this is going to happen, you know that, you know, the persecuted Jews of the World War are going to end up creating genocide for another people, and they're going to actually put other people through what they went through, if not worse, for the whole world to see, and they're going to get away with it for so long, for several years, for the whole world to see. How many of you could actually say that your older self would have been like, what? The Jews are going to be the persecutors? They're going to relive their history in a more decrepit and brutal way? Most of us would have been like, I don't think so. But realistically, right now, we're in this reality of watching it happen, watching it unfurl. It's like all the hatred. You know, that's another thing that people don't realize, that through all this chaos and this misery and the horrifying things that are happening, it's actually exposing the true colors of race, people, and it's exposing, you know, the hate underneath the radar that we may not have ever noticed. So in a sense, we're bringing light to the darkness. And in a sense, would that ever happen any other way? And it's unfortunate how it has to happen, why humans are this way. I mean, let's be real. Do you think back in the day, the apostles that Jesus was, you know, rocking it with, would have said to themselves, oh, I'll forsake him? You know, they swore up and down every which way that they were always going to defend Jesus. They were always going to be there for him. And not for nothing, most of those apostles didn't make the cut. You know what I mean? They sold him out, you know, and then they kind of ran away scared after he died. And, you know, that's how humans roll. When fear steps to their own door, most of us cur away. And some of us have the grit. Some of us have the stamina. Some of us have the gumption to do something great. But a lot of us don't. And that's the thing about devastation. And that's the thing about disgusting behavior. And that's the thing about true injustice, that it does reveal a person's real character. You know what I'm saying? I mean, given the right temperature, we're now seeing that these tragedies are actually exposing who and what the true evils are out here. Ones we may never have seen before. And I mean, like I was saying about Israel, right? It's like, would we have ever thought that they would have been the condemners? Probably not. You know, the same goes for what's going on in the United States, okay? Because realistically now with ICE and like taking out whoever they feel like, it's not just Latinos anymore. It's basically anybody of any color that they see fit. If they're, you know, Middle Eastern, take them. If they're black, take them. If they're any color other than this, it seems like they'll take them. And it's basically saying that all along the lines, with the right temperature, Americans are, you know, supremacists. Americans can be pretty nasty, and Americans don't really live up to the American dream and freedom for all. It was only freedom for all when the actual leader of that free world was, you know, spouting off that it should be a free world. But once that leader changed their tune, so did a lot of Americans. And that's what I mean. It's exposing the evil within their own camp. You know, it's showing what's really broken in their own system. And I'm not saying that Canada doesn't have its problems. Trust me, we're having a huge upheaval when it comes to racism too. Because our government decided to just let everybody in the last couple of years because of Mr. Lovely Trudeau. And what's happening now is there is a suffocation of certain backgrounds that are just taking over so many jobs because the way that the visa system was working. So basically they let the floodgates open to all these external nations, and now they're not even hiring Canadians. So Canadians are kind of up in arms. I wouldn't say so much that it's racism directly, but I would honestly say that there is a racism and a hatred that's developing here where Indians that worked really hard to come to Canada a decade ago are in battle with Indians that just walked in and waltzed in the last couple of years taking over jobs. And the reason being is because those Indians previous to them had to work really freaking hard to get here, had to be doctors, had to be lawyers, had to be IT so-and-sos. And now they just open the floodgates to everyone. So it's like they're having their own kind of internal battle with their own people from their own country. So it's kind of interesting to see how that development's working. And not for nothing, like Canada's on the brink of a socialism styled government. And I mean, this idea of democracy just seems to be breaking down all over the world, if you get what I mean. Like when the UN doesn't step in for genocide, there's a problem. When certain countries don't step in for, allowing Mr. Trump to just take over whoever they want, ergo Venezuela, not for nothing, I hope that Bush Sr., even though he's not with us anymore, I'm sure Bush Jr. is really happy about that. Halliburton is run by Cheney's, but, Cheney didn't live to see this, you know what I mean? But realistically, they've been going after Venezuela for time. But wink, wink, what I think is really happening is they're actually trying to go after Iran. Why do I say that? It's like when you're on the schoolyard and you have a bigger brother that goes to school with you, and your little brother who has a nice Rolex on, aka Venezuela, is available to defeat. Who's going to step in but your bigger brother, Iraq and Iran, perhaps? And that might be the real war they're trying to strike because they want to break down OPEC. And not for nothing, I'm kind of, I wrote a paper about that in college, that this was going to happen. But hey, I digress. Anywho, why would God allow for this? Well, like I said, not much comes of simple times. Not much comes in terms of, when everything's copacetic. What really changes a people, what really changes the world, happens to always be this debasement of self-dignity and this debasement of human rights and this debasement of our civil liberties and freedoms. And that seems to get us up in arms. That gets us to go into battle mode. We have freedom fighters all around the world right now that are fighting for many, many things, be it like preservation of the forest, preservations of the lakes, preservations of the oceans, the rivers, getting rid of garbage, shaping the way we look at energy. Let's say for women's rights, for children's rights, let's say for, spiritual revolution, let's say for civil liberties, allowing humans to be human has become a big thing because now so many countries are up in arms fighting for those rights, fighting for the simple things that God gave us in the first place. Like, do you know how hilarious it is, probably to those onlookers from other galaxies or planets, when we as beings were given everything for free? Water, food, shelter, whatever, name it. We could make it, we could have it for free. Okay. And then we as humans had to create some monetary fake mumbo jumbo system. And then on top of it, we're in like trillions of dollars of debt of this fake money, whatever this is. And then it's like, so really what we told God is like, you gave us everything. We said, forget you and your nice planet with your nice stuff. We want to go be little shits. And we want to go take over the world so we could try to be more like you. Even though we don't understand the concept of what it is to be you, because animals obviously do, because they live within the free world. Technically, no one's coming after them except for us because we're destroying it. You know what I'm saying? So realistically, God doesn't allow anything other than freedom of will and freedom to choose. And what happens by that choice is in our hands. And what we choose is really what we're showing God. And really what we're showing God is that given all of the gifts, meaning we wouldn't have had to want for anything, we chose this direction. How is that God's fault? That sounds like an us problem, not a source problem. Maybe if we start to take back our world, maybe if we start to go back to what God created for us in the first place, I'm sure God would show up. I'm sure God would help us along. God's helping us along no matter what. When the hearts of the human beings and all sing the same song, when we say no more to all this garbage, war doesn't get us anywhere. War just assaults our resources. War doesn't get us anywhere. War just kills us. War doesn't get us anywhere. It just creates more money for someone else other than us. Who pays the bill for that? The vets? You know, all these people that are going to war for some big, you know, payoff in a sense at the end. Are like, oh, I'll get this tuition for my son, or I'll get this for that, or I'll get this for that once I do my time. It's like, what world are we really creating here, guys? It's like if you just dropped the guns and said, I'm not going to work for you, and let's revert back, because there is no real need for any of these bodies, really. Because look, what have our governments really done for us? Oh, that's right. Take our money, leave us with impoverished means, meaning that there's so much homelessness, not enough proper food. We have poisonous food. And we eat it. Like, we're like the only beings that go and spread poison on our food to kill other beings like ants and bugs and all that nature. And then we go eat the poison. You know, like, you know, messed in the head we have to be for all that. And that's God's fault? Maybe we should just stop spraying the poison. Maybe we should just revert back to what our basics were. Maybe we should just try to fight for everything we can and do God's will, and God will show up, because we will have showed up. We will have made the changes that we want to see. Just food for thought. Thought I'd share that, because I honestly keep hearing this question all the time and seeing it, but no one wants to say it's our fault. And that includes me too. How is it my fault? Well, let's see. Have I been doing everything I can for the world since I, started? No. Have I become a freedom fighter in the last years? Yes. But, I had so many other years I could have been doing something the same as you. And maybe today's the day that we all just say, fuck it. Let's take our world back. Let's end the stupidity. It's really just that simple. Just saying. Bye for now.